Alright, this is Fullest House, 1st edition, where we are playing Vaettiheim. It is turn 29. I think we'll actually have no battles this turn. Okay, no. Oh, right. Completely forgot about the Ice Druid, so we'll have to see how that goes. And yeah, we're doing a lot of arcane probing, although sadly we are getting absolutely nothing for it. So that didn't work out so well. But, this is the late age. There are fewer sites, and this is also just sometimes how it goes. And this is part of why, some people do not like remote site searching. If I'm remembering the cost for arcane probing correctly, that's 15 astral pearls that we spent for absolutely nothing, not to mention the mage turns. Now, of course, we did save on mage turns, because if we moved mages out to site search manually, it would have taken longer, but that's a lot of pearls to be spending for no return. That said, we don't really have any outlets for pearls at the moment, so I do think it's worth it. Not in every case, still trying to get a feel for exactly how much remote site searching you should do, but that was a bit of a painful turn. We miss with some of our manual site searching, but we do get a success. Hey, and this is actually an astral pearl, although found with a holy path, so that is nice. And I wouldn't exactly say that our blood hunting is in a good place, but it is at least approaching more respectable levels. Or perhaps better said, not completely pitiful, just mostly pitiful. Speaking of pitiful, let's see if we can unlock one of our capitals from an Ice Druid. And it's pretty much just the Ice Druid and all of his Frost Drakes that are left. We've just brought some crossbowmen and some of our Sacreds, and we're just going to buff them up. Our Sacreds have, pretty excellent resistance to cold. I'm not sure what these crossbowmen are doing. I think they might actually be moving forward to shoot at the Ice Druid, which is a little terrifying. Some of our Rimvetti got out in front because of quickness, most likely, which sadly we didn't get on all of them, and that is an issue with quickness. If you don't get it on all of your units, you end up spreading them out. Okay, yeah, so that's good. The crossbowmen, aren't going to advance too much farther forward. They do want to try to hit that unarmored caster, which is good. We just want to make sure they don't get close to the Frost Drakes because, we saw what happened with them. But the Rimvetti, they just have so much cold resistance, and the Drakes aren't particularly great in melee. So I think that works out for us pretty well. So let's take a look and see if we lose anything. No losses. So goodbye, Ice Druid, and good riddance. And let's make sure that we don't accidentally take a province from Marignan. We are just trying to suicide one of our twice-formed mages. They were totally okay with it. They understood. Sometimes, you have to turn the ones you love into skeletons. That's just the right thing to do. And that is true in the world of Dominions. And she is just set to attack. And I wonder if they get a mage with their province defense, or if this fellow is just out site searching. Let's take a look at the battle report here. No, that is just a site searcher with actually quite a significant force of heavy infantry there. So that's kind of interesting. A lot of Marignan's units do lack shields, so I can understand the desire to recruit, just some indie heavy infantry. It's also entirely possible that they are from an event, so that works out for us. And now she lives again as a white hag, so that is what we wanted. And then we witness, I suspect that Raga would be going after a throne. We moved a scout into position, and indeed they are. Let's see what they're up against. Let's see, a lot of trolls, some heavy cavalry, not too much in the way of casters. There's a troll shaman here with some gems, but not very high pathing, and that might be the only... Oh no, there's one more troll shaman here. Or no, excuse me, this fellow seems to be a little bit better at magic than most of his brethren, but still not incredibly high pathing. I think Raga will be able to roll over this pretty easily. It doesn't really look like Raga has brought too much in the way of mage support. Yeah, this fellow looks like he's probably just here for bless duties, although I think he's going to struggle to bless this many sacreds. That is one thing, Raga's sacreds are size 5, so more or less they're going to take up 1 square on their own, which means that, if you don't have your prophet, if you're just relying on normal blessing, it can actually be kind of challenging to bless large formations of them. As is the case with any large sacred. Looks like he has some indie crossbowmen here, a few of his Kalian flyers, and then some of his Abyssian infantry, or I guess they're just descended from Abyssians. So they have some built-in fire resistance, quite a bit of built-in fire resistance, but otherwise are not impressive. These are the militia, so probably they get a more fearsome unit. Not that they really need it, right? The sacreds, they provide the fearsome element of this. And let's see, yeah, the bless went down. Of course, it may actually be difficult to see Raga's bless because I don't think too many of these yet. And here we go. All right, so let's take a look at this bless. I'm expecting it to be somewhat fearsome, considering that Raga has expanded pretty well, and these guys are one of the best sacreds in the game. So people usually bless them pretty heavily. Oh yeah, looking pretty rainbowy, which is fairly common on Sacred Cavalry, which I do believe these guys count as. A bit all over the map. Magic weapons is very important for them. They don't have that built in. I like that. No fire resistance, which is interesting. I wonder if they have that built in. 10 shock resistance is decent. 10 poison resistance, very nice. 5 cold resistance, definitely something you can skimp on a little bit in terms of resistances. These guys have fairly heavy armor. 3 defense skill, 2 attack skill. I imagine, yeah, their attack skill is actually, not fantastic here. Still good. This is the late age, so there's a lot fewer elves to be dealing with. So possibly, you can get away with kind of a more mediocre attack skill in the late age. I'm not really sure. And then, of course, being cavalry, they have pretty decent defense to begin with. But still, like 19 is not, well, it's not elf level, let's say. Of course, most elves don't have 20 protection and 4 attacks, although once they use the lance, so really more like 3 attacks, still the griffins themselves are pretty nasty. A little bit of reinvigoration, which probably won't matter too much on these units. Perhaps he has some sacred mages that he's interested in helping out. Some undying, which is never bad. A little bit of HP. Blood surge, yeah, these guys probably will be killing units, so I imagine blood surge is pretty good on them. Mountain survival, which seems odd to me on a flying unit, but again, maybe this is more for the mages. And then I'm interested in combat speed. The damage that the lance strike deals is based somewhat. Yeah, okay, so there you go. It says right down there at the bottom. So the lance strike, the damage is increased based on combat speed and size, but for flyers, it's only size. So I'm not really sure if that combat speed is really helping these guys. And then they've also been given, a little bit of extra morale. So a bit all over the place, as is often the case, for the rainbow, like sacred heavy cavalry, blesses. But still, like some of those elements hopefully are more useful on the mages. That said, yeah, the Zietans, they delete things. So I don't think these throne defenders are going to do great. Trolls at least have a chance to kill them, except for the fact that their defense is certainly high enough to avoid strikes from trolls. And yeah, this many Zietans is really scary, and we would certainly struggle to deal with this. So we'll have to think about how exactly we might want to kill a stack like that. So let's see if they took any losses. I imagine the militia, yeah, did pretty poorly. And then, the Zietans did pretty much all the lifting. I imagine these militia are pretty cheap. Yeah, 20% cheaper than your average infantry. So definitely worth it in terms of losses for taking a throne. And yeah, Raga is looking dangerous. And speaking of dangerous, we have an unexpected event in Vaettiheim. Okay, we only lose some gold. That's not that bad. Okay. This is the kind of stuff we're a little more worried about. Hopefully this is not our only blood hunting province. Let's take a look at this battle. We are blood hunting in some forest. This is looking a bit like, yes, this is our blood hunting province, of course. And I have not really properly scripted this. I really should be setting up a defense. I was thinking, well, we're not really at war right now, so there's nothing to worry about. But of course, we have Misfortune 3, so there's always something to worry about. I think we have enough stuff here that will win. But of course, we need to use these patrollers to keep our blood hunting rolling, and so we don't want to lose them. And we are going to lose only a few, luckily. Yeah, barbarians aren't great, especially against, just a bunch of chaff. And of course, our Veti don't necessarily have better defense than normal, but because they pack in so tightly, it's more difficult to harass down their defense. And barbarians have pretty mediocre attack skills, so they probably struggle with our Veti a little more than normal, so that actually works out for us better than I thought it might go. And then we do some patrolling, and I will catch you guys after the jump. Alright, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. I guess the main thing is we are moving in position to take our throne, so we should clear our cap circle at around turn 30 or so. But of course, there are reasons that we have done this. Although that said, we are struggling a bit with our Dominion. It's looking very patchy, and definitely is not covering all of our new territory. And unfortunately, other people's Dominion are, pushing in faster than ours is spreading out, despite like all of our temples here. So we should be able to turn this around in time, but yeah, having this throne will help with our Dominion spread. And of course, we actually have quite a few thrones like right on our border that are held by other powers. So that's going to be a long-term problem for us. But yeah, it is what it is. And I don't think it'll be an issue. It's usually not until later in the game. We probably have another 20 or 30 turns before any really nasty Dominion-based globals come out. Although we have recruited, a couple, I think we have one priest, and I think we're going to recruit another priest. Yeah, another couple priests here, partially due to money issues, but also because, having a stack of priests that we can use to kind of control our Dominion, I think is going to be necessary. So anyway, in terms of, actually taking this throne, we're bringing the majority, of what we used against Bogarus back. We've pretty much run out of frontline that aren't Rimveti, which is kind of okay. Certainly as the game, moves forward and hopefully we get bigger and need to start to run multiple armies, we will definitely start to produce a lot of Berserkers again and start to use a non-Rimveti front line. But for the moment, since we're planning on fighting relatively close to home, well, in the case of the throne, we're going to be fighting right next to our capital. It's totally viable for us to, be using Rimveti as our front line. And then we're just bringing, a grab bag of mages back, leaving a few mages behind in Bogarus' capital. And we'll pretty much be using, the same spells and the same kind of strategy that we used in the war that we just had. And I have pretty good feelings, the mages here could cause some problems for us, but we're going to bring enough stuff. We've got all of that stuff coming in, and then we've got a good amount of Rimveti built up in the capital. We're doing a little more Rimveti recruitment this turn, as well as a few more crossbowmen to round it out. So, we'll have a lot of units, and we'll be bringing quite a few mages. I think we'll be able to take this throne out without too much difficulty or too many casualties. Which will be important because, we're planning on jumping off in the not too distant future. We can see this army from Archocephaly here. And so, we definitely don't want to jump into this conflict until these two have fought a lot more. Diplomatically, it would be more convenient for me if Pangaea were to take a lot of these surrounding lands. So then I could just take them from Pangaea. But realistically, somebody is going to grab Archocephaly's capital, and it would be best if it was us, so I should probably just bite the bullet and attack both of these players at my convenience, and that is probably what we'll end up doing. So we at least want to wait until these two fight a major battle against each other, which I think will happen shortly. And to that end, we are moving a couple more Wolf Brother raiding groups out, so I think we have a total of 4 now, so we're going to be moving 2 here and then start to spread them out more in Pangaea's territory, since I think Pangaea is probably the greater threat. And then we have 1 more Wolf Brother raiding group up here, and then this is actually a Wolf Brother raiding group here that's doing a little bit of scouting for us. And I think the plan is like 1 more, 2 more, 3 more Wolf Brother raiding groups. I don't know. We'll see. At least 1 more, probably 2 more. 3 might be a bit excessive. The other thing that we're going to do is we've started twice-borning, of course. We saw the 1 suicide. We have plenty of other mages that we can twice-born, and so we're going to twice-born up a bunch of them. May actually want to start that this turn. I've held off for the moment. It's not cheap. I mean, it's the cheapest it can possibly be because we're size 1 and twice-borning is based off of your size. The larger you are, the more that it costs. So for us, it only costs 5 for our little Veti. But we don't have a ton of death income, and we are going to want a decent number of skull staffs, which are not cheap. So I do want to be careful, about kind of overcommitting and using too many of our death gems for twice-borning. I also think that, combining twice-borning with transformation, which we'll talk about in a little more detail, once we actually unlock that research, which we're right on the edge of doing. Transformation comes at alteration 6, so we should have that next turn. We'll probably start doing that more or less right away. But anyway, in terms of how we're planning on using it now, we can take our twice-born mages, and they're also stealthy, and making skeletons is pretty effective, and I've bumped that up, and we're going to do enchantment 5 after alteration 6. So we'll just send in, twice-born mages stealthily, and they can kind of constitute our other raiding threat vector. And so, between our Wolf Brother groups and, our twice-born mages, we should be able to actually pretty effectively cover a lot of territory. But we don't want to be completely greedy, so I reached out to Marignon just to let him know that, hey, like I'm thinking about, moving in this direction, and, if you want Pangea's capital, like that's cool with me. I don't really want to block them in. And of course, they do have a giant army here, right? So it's like if I take everything, like, yeah, okay, they do still have a border with Pythium. There's a throne up here that Pythium has. God, this is just kind of a random aside, but this has been such a weird game in terms of like cap circles and thrones. So like, I don't know how I missed this, but so, Pythium has this throne that's in Pangea's cap circle, right? But Pangea has chosen to like go fight over this throne or this capital instead. And like, I mean, this move makes sense in a void, absolutely. But I don't know, if it was me, it's kind of like, well, don't you have like other problems, like other things you need to deal with like right now? But, I don't know. I guess they don't feel that way. And then, of course, like, we know about Raga, who has put a castle in the cap circle of somebody that ostensibly they have a non-aggression pact with. And then also, Raga, again, the throne they just took, it's actually in the cap circle of Agartha. So, yeah, I don't know. This is just, I should reach out to Agartha and see where they're at. It looks like Agartha is currently fighting Man and about to be finished with Man. Although it doesn't look like they're, massive. We don't really know, like, how far out this direction they extend. But yeah, I mean, considering they have, like, Raga in their cap circle, things probably aren't going amazingly. But it does look like they're getting close to winning their first war. So, that is good for them. But anyway, back to matters more close at hand. So, we didn't agree to anything specific, and I think it's, going to depend on how much commitment they can provide and how the war goes for us, honestly. I have good feelings about it, but I've been wrong many times. So ideally, I think we're at least going to grab this forest, maybe grab this forest as well, and then just sort of like leave the the border territory here in the capital, and Marignon can take this throne as well, because we're going to focus on this throne, and then ideally thrust ourselves up this way to grab Arcocephales' capital. And then that'll put us in a good position if we want, right, to attack Gath. But also, like, we've talked about Raga, and, we definitely have a bit of a Raga problem. I actually had to start counting thrones, which is probably the earliest that I've ever done that in a full house game. And while Raga isn't exactly close to a throne victory, they're not super far away either, right? So they already have like 3 thrones now under their control. And then they border another neutral throne here, and then they're not too far away from this throne down here. And then, like, I don't think this throne has a fort on it yet, and, like, Raga's not that far from this throne. So anyway, you need 8 thrones to win, so, like, there's still, it's still a ways off. They're still going to have to fight a couple major wars, I think, to, close out the game. But, they are concerningly big, right? And we do need to be careful, actually, because if anybody can throne rush, right, stacks like this, just jumping on top of, like, an unforted throne where somebody's thinking, like, oh, yeah, like, I have time, I'm safe, and then all of a sudden, Raga does that in, 2 or 3 places, and bam, they can close out the game. So I don't know if we're, going to immediately jump into a war with Raga, but there definitely is opportunity where we would actually not be far from Raga's capital, which is, kind of a double-edged sword. That's where the Zaedans come from, but it also means that, they're going to defend their capital very strongly. But, there is also, 2 thrones here that we could grab off of them without having to make too much, progress into their overall territory. We also have the option, right, to attack them. We do technically border them now, and I think they've managed to connect this land. It does look like, it's a bit of an awkward finger of territory, but, we could at least pick up a little bit of territory here. And of course, no one owns this throne yet. Now, assuming Raga doesn't grab it, I think it's unlikely it'll stay neutral, like long enough for us to grab it from the neutrals. But, if Raga grabs that one as well, then like, hey, maybe we could pick up 3 thrones from Raga. So anyway, that's kind of, more like long-term plans, right, which we knew about, right? We're going to attack these guys, and then it's either going to be Raga or it's going to be Gath. And then also to that end, I did reach out to Utgard, and they did agree to a non-aggression pact 3, so, this border should be relatively secure. And then probably the other thing of note is Marignon is planning on trying to dom kill Calum, because, they have had enough of losing commanders to Thunderstrike. Apparently, the strikes that we saw were not the only commanders that got sniped. So yeah, I don't know if it's strictly necessary. I don't think Calum had like that much left, if I'm remembering correctly, but I could be misremembering. And I mean, the Dom kill is definitely going to be cheaper. Although the player that's subbed in for Calum, like, they are probably doing a lot of preaching inside, their capital. So I am interested to see like how difficult it is to Dom kill someone who's just down to their capital. And if anyone can do it, Marignon can, because they have Inquisitors that are more effective at removing enemy candles. So yeah, I think that covers the majority of it. We do need to get another blood hunting group up. We're moving some of our chaff. We're just going to leave our siege guys here for now. We don't want to move them onto the border. They're not stealthy. We'll probably recruit like another stack of roughly the same size from our capital, once we're ready to jump into the war proper. But some of our other garbage we're going to send into this forest, and we're probably going to use it as another patrol group to do some blood hunting here. Unfortunately, we haven't really built up any blood mages over here, but once we do get some blood mages over here, we'll start blood hunting, I think, in this province, at least for a little while. And then I think probably we will set up another blood hunting group, maybe in this forest and possibly also this forest, simply because, we have labs here and it's convenient. We'll move on to other places. They're also not like terrible places to blood hunt because we're, well over the population breakpoint for when blood hunting gets a lot harder. But they also don't provide like an incredible amount of income. Like this one's a little nicer. But yeah, so, we're going to mess up the income of these places quite a bit. So the fact that their income isn't like amazing is nice, whereas, their population is still decent. But of course, we will need to recruit more patrollers over here, or potentially we're going to try to summon in some wolves. Like I said, we do want to do some transformations, so, wolves take nature gems, so we'll have to be careful about, using too many gems for patrollers. But on the other hand, our upkeep income situation is in a good place right now, but this is climbing pretty rapidly. We're not doing full mage recruitment this turn, right? It's, I think, just the priests. So we're at least utilizing, I think, all of our commander points, I'm pretty sure. But it is starting to become a struggle to, recruit mages out of everywhere and, recruit troops. We're not doing a ton of troop recruitment. We're recruiting some Wolf Brothers here. Then we talked about the capital recruitment. Recruiting a few troops on our border just for bodyguards for the mages that are there. We'll probably recruit a few more just as a garrison force for that fort. But anyway, we do need to keep an eye on our upkeep. And of course, the more gold-based patrol groups that we have, that's just more gold that it can't be translated easily into combat power. I guess eventually, indirectly, through the blood slaves that they generate. And I guess as a final note, we can see that Patala here has taken back one of their cap circle provinces. I'm assuming this force was in this cave last turn, because we saw that they'd taken that back. There is an outside chance, right? I think at one point we did attack Patala, took one of their cap circle provinces. I think it was this one. And we might have actually, I don't know if we directly attacked them. I think we took it from Bogarus. Anyway, we don't really have much in the way of defenses over here, and maybe Patala decides I just need some temporary money, there doesn't seem to be much defense over here, sure, they're kind of dead anyway, right? So someone with nothing to lose or very little to lose is dangerous. So a little bit nervous about this, not expecting them to attack us, but it's not impossible. I don't think they would make a sustained attack, but raiding away some of this territory and then forcing a response from us might be something that they do, which would be annoying because it would slow down our timetable. But realistically, we'll probably have a few. We are so slow though. Our main stacks are quite slow, so if we had to send a main stack anyway, it would be a hassle. So let's hope it doesn't happen. So yeah, I think that covers turn 29.